Good evening. I'm George Herbig, Chief Forecaster, here with Weather Now Kentucky. We do have a lot to talk with you about tonight. Some model changes have occurred. Let's go ahead and talk about some of that. Talk about what we're kind of feeling right now. We'll answer a few questions, but again, I just want to start with saying I don't think we're really ready for specifics just yet when it comes down to county by county, but I really feel like we're close. There's actually some hurricane hunters going out right now, or at least tonight, and getting some real actual data from the moisture pool that's happening in the southern portion of this storm system. When we get that data in and you put that data into the models, then you can get real specific with things. But I kind of want to wait to get real specific county by county until, that really comes in. But I feel like we're really, really, really close. And in this broadcast, we'll tell you about what's changed, tell you about what's kind of trended, and kind of just show you where we are right now, what we're kind of watching. So, of course, let's give it a minute or two, allow folks to get in here, get settled in. Sometimes the notifications go out slower or faster, depending upon your internet. So let's all be patient here. While we're waiting, if you would not mind, tap the share button if you're on Facebook. Tap that share button, that little arrow at the bottom portion of your screen. Share this video on your news feed so that way your friends and family can view it and get informed, and it helps us to grow as well. So thank you guys very much for all the likes, the shares, all the questions and comments you guys are going to ask. I appreciate you guys a ton for trusting us throughout what's going to be a pretty impactful winter storm here. While we're waiting, I wanted to get something else queued up, and I almost forgot to, so this is a good time. Make sure you're saying hello as you come in. If you are just now hopping in here, you have not missed a thing. I'm kind of just getting some stuff set up here. I pretty much have it set up, but, I forgot one thing because that's a classic George thing to do. It wouldn't be a Weather Now Kentucky broadcast unless I forgot something. Good evening, everybody. Again, if you have just now tuned in, you have not missed a thing here. Okay, we'll just go off of yeah, that works. Thank you for the 145 stars, Megan. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I appreciate that star donation. Kristen, good evening out of Breckenridge County. Oh my goodness, there's so many comments coming in so fast. Thank you guys again. Teresa, good evening to you. Melissa, hello. Christina, hello. Emily, Vicky, Tamara. I'm just going to read off names here because the comments are going so fast. Nadine, Stacy, Robin, Kimberly, Chum. Dude, the comments are disappearing as soon as I see them. I appreciate all of y'all's excitement, and I know there's a lot of concern here as well. We'll give it about 30 more seconds. I still see a lot of folks funneling in here, and then we'll get started on things. Once again, if you are just now hopping into the broadcast, yes, we do have a winter storm watch out from the National Weather Service that covers every single county in the state of Kentucky. But I do think different areas in Kentucky will see different things. So we'll kind of talk about that. We'll talk about where our feelings are, what we're watching right now, how specific we can get versus what we're kind of waiting to see. And of course, we'll kind of answer a few questions, but I can't get too specific at this time. By late tonight, going into tomorrow morning, I really feel like we'll be able to get real specific on things, start putting some really concrete numbers on things, and get expectations set correctly. Just know this before we start diving into everything. No matter where you are in Kentucky, you are going to see an impactful winter storm this weekend. No matter where you are, you're just going to see different things depending upon where you're at, okay? So one thing we got to be clear on here is in Kentucky, the entire state is going to see an impactful winter storm. It's just about kind of identifying which type of winter storm we're going to be looking at here. All right. So with that said, thank you guys again for all the shares on the broadcast. I appreciate you sharing the feed out. Thank you guys for your help with getting everyone informed. We appreciate you. Thank you to everyone watching on YouTube and Facebook tonight. We're live on both platforms here. Let's go ahead and pull up our main broadcast screen here. So this is kind of cut off, but this is I'm going to show you this, kind of all the Weather Prediction Center stuff. And then I'm going to show you, well, I guess I probably could have pulled this up on Aguacero now that I think about it, but I didn't have that set up. Then I'm going to show you the model data. And I'm going to show you kind of an image we made earlier, okay? So we have a few things to definitely go through here. Right now on your screen, I know it's kind of cut off, but this is the hazards outlook from the National Weather Service's Weather Prediction Center. So this is basically going to show you every single hazard that's expected to happen over the next 3 to 7 days. Now in Kentucky, you can see that there are two hazards that are being highlighted: heavy snow and hazardous cold. These are things that we've been trying to nail home for the last few days here. But again, I want to point out that all of Kentucky is highlighted there, not just one portion. All of Kentucky is highlighted in both of those risks. By the way, the freezing rain risk is in pink. I think over the next couple of updates, you're going to see that brought up into Kentucky a little bit more. I will explain why and show you where. But again, I think over the next couple of updates, you're going to see that pink freezing rain risk brought a little bit more into Kentucky. That's just my gut feeling there. Okay, next one I kind of want to show you here is the chances of at least moderate snow impacts and chances of at least moderate ice impacts. So you can see in Kentucky, by the way, I want to point out once again, for those of you that are going to ask about which sides of the state are at more risk here, all of Kentucky is included in that snow risk map when it comes to chances of at least moderate snow impacts. By the way, real quickly while we're doing this, I'll pull it up later on, but the NWS Louisville came out with a great graphic that I think I may have actually saved. I don't know if I saved it on here or if I saved it on my phone. Did I save it on here? Please tell me I got lucky. I did not get lucky. It's on my phone. I'll see if I can go find that here in a little bit. But this graphic is basically trying to show us that there is a 60 to 80% chance of at least moderate snow impacts in Kentucky. So again, that's going to be interruptions to travel, perhaps interruptions to everyday normal life and routine. And then, of course, the chance of at least moderate ice impacts is starting to scoot into Kentucky. This was not in Kentucky a couple of updates ago. As it's going through each update here from the models and from the Weather Prediction Center, the ice impact scale is starting to wake up inside of Kentucky a little bit as well. And again, I will show you why I believe that is occurring. That's pretty much all I wanted to show you for the Weather Prediction Center. Let's go ahead and take a look at the current watch that we have out here. By the way, it's scrolling at the bottom portion of your screen there. This is a winter storm watch for all of Kentucky. Just barely gets up there to northern Kentucky. Eventually, I think southern Indiana and southern Ohio will fill in a little bit more. But winter storm watch is out. The bulletin is, of course, for all areas in Kentucky. This goes from Saturday morning through Monday morning. And it says a winter storm is expected to bring moderate to major impacts to central Kentucky and southern Indiana this weekend. Periods of moderate to heavy snow are forecast this weekend with a possibility of a wintry mix of snow and sleet across southern Kentucky. Portions of south central Indiana and east central, north central, northwest, and south central. Why couldn't they just say all of Kentucky? I hate when they do that. But anyway, impacts at the bottom there. Plan for considerable disruptions to daily life. Be prepared for dangerous travel conditions and ready to avoid travel if possible. So again, that's coming out from the National Weather Service 3 to 4 days out. So you kind of read that wording there and you kind of understand the scope of what we're about to go through this weekend. So that's the Winter Storm Watch. Once again, that includes all of Kentucky. All right. Now, this is a graphic we made earlier today. And again, I'm going to show you the model data, but I want to kind of explain this a little bit more here. So in this pink area, models have kind of trended more strong with the low pressure. And what has happened is instead of going out to the East Coast with the low pressure that most are trying to show here, it's almost trending more toward a Miller B type storm system. And what that means is basically a low pressure at the surface that kind of travels up toward the Appalachian Mountains and then kind of transfers its energy to a secondary low pressure off the coast and out into the ocean. Now, as a result of that, when that low pressure comes up into the Appalachian Mountains, if it sneaks into the Kentucky side, like let's say Hazard or down there toward Harlan, out in the southeastern Kentucky border, when that occurs, if that low pressure comes up into that spot, you get a warm surge of air about a mile up above our heads. And I'll show you this on the model data as well. But when that happens, even though I will tell you it's going to be really cold all weekend while it's snowing, again, 15 to 20 degrees, there's no question it's freezing at the ground. But when that occurs and that little warm nose comes in a mile above our heads, that actually melts the snowflake and turns it into either a freezing raindrop or a sleet pellet, depending upon if it has time to refreeze or not. So some of the model data now is trying to bring that low pressure up into the Appalachian Mountains, up into the southeastern portion of Kentucky. And what that's doing is it's shoving the heavier snow up toward places like Elizabethtown, Louisville, Lexington, Florence, Kentucky, Owensboro, basically along the Ohio River, just south and just north of both sides of the river there. It's basically where the heavier snow is trying to be focused now from one of the models, or a couple of the models at least. And then, of course, as a result to the south of that, you'll still see a pretty hefty snowfall. But in the middle of your snow event, you're actually going to switch over to a freezing rain or sleet most likely at some point, which you're still going to end up with a lot of snow, but you're not going to end up with the, let's say, 20 to 24 inches of snow because obviously you have some freezing rain and sleet mixing in there. So even though you folks in pink are like ice, snow, split, you're thinking, George, this always happens. We never get any snow. No, you're still going to end up with at least 4 inches of snowfall. I'm very confident about that. It's just a matter of trying to figure out what exact range you fall into, whether it's I'm going to be honest with you, whether it's 8 to 12 inches, whether it's 16 to 20 inches, or whether it's, 6 to 10 inches, because you're dealing with some rain or freezing rain and sleet mixing in. So no matter how you slice it here, it is going to be an absolute mess, and impacts are absolutely going to be expected this weekend. And let's show you some of the model data now. I'm also already seeing a lot of questions about what should I do with my weekend plans, so on and so forth. Guys, if you have any weekend plans, get your money back if you can. It's not happening, Bubba. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn on the European model here. And what I kind of want to show you first here is the evolution of this storm, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the kind of snowfall, sleet, and ice amounts. Okay, so you guys ready? Here we go. Actually, I'm going to pause for a second, make you wait for 10 seconds while I take a drink, because this is a lot here, folks. All right, now let's do this. So let's take us through Wednesday, Thursday. So tonight, of course, and then Thursday, mostly clear. Friday, mostly clear. And then Saturday, sometime the models are kind of differing on this. So I want to be honest with you right here real quick. The timing is not set in stone on this. So if you didn't hear me right there, I want to say again, the timing is not set in stone. Some of the shorter range models that we're starting to see come in, like the NAM and the double RFSA model, they're trying to indicate that let me zoom this out here, that this, by the way, you can already see how massive this is, okay? They're trying to indicate that the front side of this storm system, like down here into, let's say, northern Arkansas, southern Missouri, what those short range models are trying to indicate is a branch of snow that may extend out a little bit further, like if you can kind of imagine it with my cursor right here. And so what that means is that model is trying to make the snowfall enter Kentucky Friday night, not Saturday morning. And then we would have a break at some point, and then we would have a second storm kind of wave. And it's a mess. So I just want to say real quickly again, before we start really going into the data here, the timing is definitely not set in stone. Just want to make that very clear. But I will kind of just call out the timings and so on and so forth here. So this is right here is valid for about Saturday at 7 a.m. Eastern time. So now you start to see the European model here, which, by the way, has been the most consistent model with this. It is one of the best wintertime models available. So again, we usually take this with a little bit more of respect when we're looking at this model versus some of the other models that are out there. And again, I'll show you some of the other models as well, but I wanted to start off with the European model here. So the European model has the snow kind of working into our area starting around 7 a.m. Eastern time on Saturday. And then as we advance this forward to 10 a.m., 1 p.m., you'll see that some dry air at the front may kind of stop the snow from falling, but trust me, folks, it's not going to last long. All right, because eventually it fills in, as you can see there. And these dark blues to even some of these like bright kind of shades or shadows of purple right here, that is some incredibly heavy snowfall. So the heavier snowfall really begins to move in around the early afternoon hours on Saturday, 1 to 4 p.m.-ish Eastern time. And pretty much all of Kentucky is blanketed in this massive snow plume here. And as we advance this forward to the evening time on Saturday, this is when things begin to get a little bit more hairy. Let me turn this on as well. Actually, I forgot to turn this on. I want to turn this on for you as well. This is called the isotherm line. Basically, this is the freezing line. I know it's kind of hard to see. Let me just for sake of purposes for you to be able to see it a little bit better, let's change the color there to something like, I don't know. Let's go with like a red or black. Yeah, black actually works really well. I'm kind of surprised. But again, that's kind of the freezing line there of above the surface, by the way, not at the ground, above the surface. So what I want to show you now is kind of the evolution. All right, advance us forward to Saturday around 10 p.m. An ongoing and likely crippling ice storm into Tennessee at this point. And again, we still have heavier snows. Look at these kind of just hues of purple here. If you look up here at well, you can't see it, it's off your scale. But those little hues of purple that you're seeing around E-Town, Danville, Owensboro, Madisonville, Campbellsville, and Louisville, that is about 3/4 of the way up the snow scale there. So that is extremely strong snowfall that's coming through. Extremely strong snowfall. By the way, it's going to be about 15 degrees while it's snowing. So again, you're talking about very efficient snowfall. No problems with anything sticking this weekend. That's not the question here. Okay, advance this forward to Sunday around 1 a.m. So now we're about 12 hours into this event. And this is where things begin to get a little bit hairy here. Here is the models, the black line is the freezing line here. but it's trying to show freezing rain is occurring north of that freezing line. The reason for that is a very, very small nose of warm air that's coming in as that low pressure is getting closer to Kentucky, and that's converting some of you from a snow to a freezing rain. But what I want to point out here before we go any forward is that even though some of you may convert to a freezing rain, you had incredibly heavy snowfall for 10 to 12 hours. So for those of you in Bowling Green or Campbellsville, Somerset, or Monticello, where kind of the areas where I think you may see a little bit more freezing rain out of this than other portions of Kentucky, and you're thinking, God, we always miss out on this. No, you're still going to have at least 10 to 12 hours of snowfall before this happens. Of course, unless we see another dramatic shift to the north, and then we have to talk about this all over again. But right now, this is kind of where we're at. So again, this is valid for Sunday at 1 a.m., Sunday 4 a.m., and you'll see that now the cold air is starting to fight back. You can tell this because when I zoom out, I want you to kind of watch the evolution of this backside of this snow up here. Look at where my cursor's at, okay? And you kind of just see it being shoved down and shoved to the east here. That is the cold air starting to fight back. It's saying, no, we're not getting shoved out of the way. We're going to come in here and you're going to like it. Okay, this is Sunday at 7 a.m., Sunday at 10 a.m. So what you've noticed here is that there is regular rain in southeastern Kentucky. Now, this is throwing a lot of folks off guard because they're seeing this and they're thinking, oh my goodness, this is a bust for Somerset, Barberville, Hazard, Pikeville, where the model is trying to show you as regular rain. I really want to point out, and I'm going to show you this on the model as well, I really want to point out that even if you do somehow in a magical world see regular plain rain out of this, the moment this storm system stops, we all crash to below 25 degrees. So what that means is that anything that's on that ground at that point suddenly freezes. It becomes a layer of ice. So even if you're in Somerset, Barberville, and Hazard, Pikeville, and you're in that regular green shade there, and you're watching this broadcast right now, like, what in the heck is George talking about? That's showing rain. I don't think it really matters because after the event's over, the temperature just plummets. Matter of fact, a lot of us go into the negatives. All right, so again, just want to kind of point that out as well. I also want to point out that when I go back here a couple of clicks, we see how far north that this model came with that rain and or with that freezing rain and with that snow line. Freezing rain, by the way, being in pink. I forgot to make that clear earlier. I'm sorry about that. That's my fault. Freezing rain is in pink. Purple, bluish is kind of the snow. And then these kind of deeper purples that you see are the more obvious purples. That's your sleet. I need to work with the color key a little bit more here. Bear with me. This is a newer product that I'm using. I haven't really fine-tuned it yet. But I need to work with it, make the sleet orange instead of purple. And that'll help you stand out a little bit more for you. All right? So, again, I want to point out that that freezing rain line only comes up to about the western Kentucky parkways. Okay? Beyond that, like places like E-Town, Louisville, Owenton, Maysville, Lexington, Florence, Owensboro, Mayfield, Morganfield, on this model, you never see any freezing rain. Okay? I wanted to make that clear as well. And then as that rain line comes north and that above freezing line comes north, the cold air fights back. By Sunday morning at 10 a.m., this is what it looks like. Sunday afternoon at 1 p.m., that snow begins to move back in. Sunday at 4 p.m., Sunday at 7 p.m., Sunday at 10 p.m. And at 10 p.m., the event is over. The event started at Saturday at 1 p.m. or Saturday at about 11 a.m., and it ended Sunday at about 10 p.m. That is a 24 to 36 hour long event. So this is what I'm saying here is if you have any weekend plans, you don't bank on them because it's going to be actively wintry that entire time. So this was just one model. By the way, I'm going to show you more models, so hang out here. Don't go anywhere. I want to show you more models here so that you can have more context. Here are the totals from this model because you're going to see them anyway. They're all over social media. I've been talking about them. So I want to kind of show you them here as well. Here is the sleet totals from this model. It's showing, it's trying to show 1.8 inches of pure sleet in West Liberty, for example. About a half inch to 1 inch of sleet. Basically along those areas where we saw that mixing start to mix in a little bit there. So again, about a half inch to 1 inch of sleet. I don't see this as a major, I see a lot of folks saying a lot of major sleet for us. That warm nose is pretty much either going to make this freezing rain or snow. And the models have been saying this as well. So I'm not really sure where the incredible sleet talk has been coming from. I've been seeing a lot of sleet storm posts. For brief periods, you may see a downpour of sleet. But I don't see this as being an overwhelming sleet for us. That's more for like Tennessee, Arkansas, as you can kind of see here. I think that's more along those lines. For us, we're much closer to that colder air. So that warm nose is either going to make it freezing rain or it's going to make it snow. I don't see a ton of sleet here for us. And by a ton, I mean like 3, 4, or 5 inches of sleet, which we have seen before here. I distinctly remember that. So that's the sleet. Here is the freezing rain. And again, I think this might be a little bit overdone here, but this is the freezing rain projection from this one model. Again, this is not our forecast. We have not made a forecast yet for this. That will probably come out first thing tomorrow morning. Okay, this is just the model. And again, I'm going to show you a few different models as well, so you kind of get different ideas of what to expect here. I will say this model is probably the most aggressive with the freezing rain. For Southern Kentucky, the other models are not as aggressive. I don't remember them being anyway. But it does show a quarter to a half inch, basically, of pure freezing rain for basically the southern half of Kentucky here, from Murray, Hopkinsville, Bowling Green, Edmonton, Campbellsville, Somerset, Barberville, Hazard, Pikeville, McKee, Danville, and everywhere in between there. So again, you're talking about a quarter to half inch of freezing rain there. That is dangerous. It's not crippling like you're going to see down here in places like West Tennessee, going down to Mississippi here, Arkansas, where they're projected to see an inch and a half of ice. That is crippling. That is, you're not going anywhere. It's a threat to life. It's a threat to everything. Okay, we know all about that here in Kentucky. And I know I'm going to look over there and I'm going to see a lot of questions as, can that heavier ice come up to Kentucky? It can. Okay, I'm not going to lie to you. But as I have maintained several times, and as I will continue to say, I don't see that happening here for us, because I don't see a world where the low pressure comes into, in order for that to happen, the low pressure would have to come into like Edmonton and Campbellsville for a large amount of freezing rain here in the state. I don't see a world where that happens when we have this strength of cold air to our northwest. I don't see that happening. Okay, but nonetheless, a half inch of ice is absolutely going to cause issues. It is very heavy on power lines, so hopefully we can avoid this and we start to trend back a little bit more toward just the snowy stuff. Speaking of snowy stuff, here is the projected snowfall totals from this model. And again, this is just one model, so I want to point that out here. This is not our forecast. I want to say that again. This is not our forecast. This is one model. But I will say this model has been, over the last 4 to 5 runs after its last little final shift, it's pretty much set in the same area of Louisville, E-Town, Owensboro, Madisonville. Basically, that bright white stripe that you see there, it has basically set there as the heaviest snowfall. It hasn't really moved much more. So we're starting to get the feeling from this model, at least, that it has found its idea and it's probably going to stick with this idea. But remember, hurricane hunters are going in to the basically into the skies to our south tonight to measure and get us some real data, to actually put in real data instead of just algorithms to the models. So again, I want to point out that I think we may see some subtle shifts, but I think we're starting to see from this model at least that it's pretty much done. I will also point out that it does show some very light amounts out there toward Pikeville, Hazard, Barberville, Somerset. I think the model's being a little bit too stingy. I think you're probably closer to 3 to 4 inches out there. But I will say on almost all the data, except for the GFS model, but I will show you the GFS model, but I don't think it's right. Pretty much all the data has, the southeastern corner of the state at the lowest amounts. So again, just keep that in mind. The only model that doesn't is the GFS model, which I think has got the wrong idea with this. But again, you kind of see the impacts here. 12 to 18 inches of snow is nothing to play around with. And even for places like Bowling Green, Campbellsville, Danville, Hopkinsville, Edmonton, Murray, where you're like, man, we got some snow, but we could have got the bigger stuff. Yeah, but you're talking about 6 to 8 inches or 5 to 8 inches of snowfall, along with a half inch of ice. That is nasty stuff. That is nasty, nasty, nasty stuff. So again, that's just one model here. I want to kind of show you some of the other models real quickly. All right. So let's go ahead and take over and look at the GFS model. And let's see its idea, which again, I want to point out, I don't think it's 100% accurate. I don't think any of these models are. They never are. But I think the GFS model is a little bit out in la la land. Okay. It's gotten better. It's gotten closer. Last night, it looked completely like the European model. But then today it came through and it was like, nah, I kind of want to go back to the stupid stuff that I was doing beforehand. So again, this model is not great at events like this because it struggles to handle thermal profiles that are definitely conflicting. With an event like this that has thermal profiles that are conflicting, you obviously have to know that the GFS model is not going to be, all that accurate. So let's get this queued up here. This has the snow coming in basically around the same time, so we're starting to get more accurate on the timing here. Saturday around 7 a.m., Saturday between 4 to 8 a.m. or so-ish. A little bit faster than the European model, okay? Kind of keeps us as an all-snow. And then we take a break. Saturday night, this is valid right here for Saturday at 10 p.m. So from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., pretty much had a wide snow throughout Kentucky. And then some portions of Kentucky take a break. I don't know if I'm buying that. If that does happen, where we start to get a break and we have multiple low pressures come through like the GFS is trying to show, then typically that would lead to more snowfall, okay? I know you're thinking about that and you're like, George, how in the world would a break equal more snowfall for Kentucky? Well, when that happens, we're actually having, if you can see out, well, you can't, but if I zoom this out, what's happening here is moisture is kind of getting sent up to the west here, kind of wrapping around instead of just all being fueled in. So what that's telling us is the GFS model is kind of respecting the cold air, ironically enough. And what it's doing is it's taking the low pressure, and instead of moving it up through the Appalachian Mountains like we talked about, kind of like where my cursor's following here, it's taking one up through, and it's taking another one and bringing it out to the side. So we're seeing multiple low pressures here, which is why we're kind of seeing a break for some portions of Kentucky on the GFS model around midday or a late night Saturday. And then the GFS model wakes back up. And then it's like, let's go, round two. Sunday morning, around 4 to 7 a.m., it kicks back up for a lot of Kentucky. But notice how close it is to cutting off. Look at the northern edge of Kentucky. It's very close to cutting off the northwestern edge of Kentucky here. Sunday around 1 p.m., 4 p.m., 7 p.m., 10 p.m., Sunday or Monday at 1 a.m., it's finally out of here. So this has it as an entire weekend ordeal with a little bit of a break Saturday night into Sunday morning. And one thing you notice there is it barely showed any freezing rain or sleet for Kentucky. So you know what? I'm actually rooting for the GFS model. I just don't think it's going to happen. But I'm rooting for it. Here is the freezing rain total from projection from the GFS model. Pretty good. Pretty good. It's out of Kentucky. It's nowhere, really not any, it's a little bit down here, but really the big stuff's not anywhere near us. Here is the sleet idea from the GFS model. Show you that real quickly. It also is not really near Kentucky at that point. Okay. Here is the snow idea from the GFS model. And of course, with that break that occurred for places like E-Town, Madisonville, Paducah, instead of you seeing a ridiculous 23 inches like Somerset, you see closer to 9 to 10 inches, which is still a lot of snow. But this is why the GFS model is a little bit more to the southeast with it. The problem that you're seeing here, and why we have not put out any maps yet, is look at eastern Kentucky. Hazard, Barberville, Pikeville, these three areas. Now, if you remember, if we go back to the European model real quickly and look at it, right? 1, 2 inches, so 1 to 2 inches of snowfall. We come back to the GFS model. I mean, that's a stark difference. That's a stark difference. So if we made a snowfall map right now, in eastern Kentucky, we would put a 2 to 25 inch snowfall range. That is why we have not made a snowfall map yet. That's why we have not answered your questions about different counties, because you can't. You can't yet. The data is still way too inconsistent. All right? But again, this is the GFS model's idea. This is not our forecast. But it does show a pretty heavy snowfall, obviously, for a lot of Kentucky, and it just slams. It just slams Somerset, Barberville, McKee, Hazard, Pikeville, Edmonton, Bowling Green. Basically, the areas that the European kind of missed out on, the GFS says, no, I think they're going to get it. So, again, that's why we haven't put out any snowfall maps yet. I'm hoping with the real data that comes in tonight, we can get a little bit closer there. What I want to show you now is the European AI model. This model has been incredibly stubborn in a good way. It means it has been incredibly consistent. It hasn't really moved around a whole lot. It's been pretty strong with its idea. Again, it just has not moved a whole lot. It's been showing the same thing for a couple of days now. It just has not moved. So I wonder if that's just the model being stingy, or if it's because it's found something and it's because it's locked into it. Okay, so here it is coming in Saturday morning, just like the other models. Really hefty snowfall for a lot of Kentucky. That purple that you're seeing there is sleet. So it really doesn't see a whole lot of freezing rain. It sees sleet. I do want to point out that these AI models, though, they do tend to handle precipitation types pretty poorly. All right. So this sleet that you're seeing on your screen here, this purple that you're seeing, could easily be freezing rain. So I just want to keep that and kind of point that out to you as well. All right. Pointing this out or keeping going here, Sunday at 1 a.m. By the way, this is now an easy 12 to 15 hours where it's just been snowing like crazy for a large portion of Kentucky. And it also kind of stops the sleet, freezing rain mixture around the Bowling Green, Edmonton, Somerset, McKee, and Jackson, Kentucky areas. It's a little bit more south with it than the original European model. All right, and then by Sunday, or it keeps it going all the way until Sunday night, and then by Monday morning, it's out of here. So it had it starting, once again, all the way back Saturday at 7 a.m., takes it through Saturday night, going into Sunday morning right here. This is Sunday at 7 a.m., and then has it exiting, overnight Sunday night going into Monday morning. So again, it doesn't really bring a whole lot of freezing rain in, but that's because, once again, it really can't read freezing rain. It just can't. Here is its snowfall projection. Now, I want to point something out here real quickly. This is something that's a little bit different. By the way, it looks like a really good kind of middle ground between the GFS and European model, right? It looks like a really good compromise between the two. It's a little bit of both here. The crazy thing about this model is that it can only see snowfall in a 10-to-1 ratio. What I mean by that is that basically the rule of thumb is for every 1 inch of liquid that you get 10 inches of snowfall from that 1 inch of liquid. That's if you're at 32 degrees. We know that for most of this storm, most of you are going to be colder than that. So your snowfall ratio is probably going to be closer to 15 to 18 to 1. So what you can do with these numbers is basically add about 50% of it into itself. So for example, in E-Town, you have 14 inches of snow projected there, right? You would take half of that, 7 inches, add that back in. That's 21 inches of snow that this model is actually trying to project here. So I know it's a little confusing, but that's basically what this model is trying to show here. So you take 50% of your number and then add it back in. So in Owensboro, take 12, half of 12 is 6. You add that 6 back in. That's 18 inches it's trying to show there. So again, that's kind of the example. Somerset is at 5. Let's call it 5. Half of that's 2.5. Add that back in. That's 7.5. So when you start to do that, you start to realize, oh crap, this model is slamming Kentucky. And it's been slamming Kentucky for about 15 runs now. I mean, it has not moved. It has not really moved. It's taken a pretty much a middle ground between the GFS and the European model and saying, hey, basically it's the parent of the two. It's saying, hey, we got two kids that are arguing here. You can both have popsicles. You can both win. So that's kind of what this model is trying to do here. So if you want a happy middle ground for all of Kentucky between all these models, this is kind of the model to root for here because it's pretty much showing mostly snow for all of you. These lighter totals that you see down here, Edmonton, Somerset, Barberville, Hazard, Pikeville, that's where some of the sleet and freezing rain would have mixed in. Because again, it's pretty much the same liquid for everyone, almost the same liquid anyway. So when you see amounts that are different, that means there's another precipitation type mixing in. So again, Somerset, obviously you're a little bit different than Campbellsville. You're 6 inches, or 8 inches, lower. That means obviously freezing rain or sleet's mixing in on this model somewhere. It just can't see it. So that's basically what that model kind of means there. All right. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get to a few of your questions here. Before we do that, I want to thank our sponsors real quickly. You guys know we have to pay the bills here, so I want to thank them. Of course, it only takes a few moments, so just hang out here with me, and then I'll answer some of your questions. We'll show you some more of the data. We'll go through and kind of make sure everyone's kind of on the same page here. So Creekside Auto and Tires. When Kentucky weather turns rough, your tires, brakes, and battery matter more than ever. Creekside Auto and Tires in E-Town and Vine Grove has you covered. From tires and batteries to oil changes, brakes, maintenance, and quality used vehicles. Make sure you call 270-769-9690. And if you mention Weather Now Kentucky, you can actually get some extra savings from Creekside Auto and Tires. Hyper Roofing in Hardin County. When severe weather hits Kentucky, Your roof is your first line of defense. Hyper Roofing is right here in Hardin County, offers one of the only GAF wind warranties in the entire state, and it's built to protect your home when storms strike. If your roof has taken wind or hail damage, you guys can tell I'm not very good at this. If your roof has taken wind or hail damage, trust the local experts, and that is Hyper Roofing. From planting season to harvest, Kentucky farmers depend on equipment that works as hard as they do. Right Implement with locations across Kentucky provides the equipment, service, and support you can count on, rain or shine. When the weather matters, experience matters, and that is Right Implement. Okay, almost done. Hang out here with me. And also, guys, consider supporting these sponsors as well. I know this is kind of an advertising moment, but these guys are the reason we could be here for you 24/7, so I really hope you do consider supporting them. Traveling or dealing with weather disruptions and need a safe place for your pet? Creature Comfort Inn in Brandenburg offers trusted boarding with the comfort and care your pets deserve. And first-time pet stays receive 10% off when you mention Weather Now Kentucky. And again, that's Creature Comfort Inn in Brandenburg. Once Upon a Child in E-Town and on Outer Loop in Louisville, I want you to know that kids grow fast, and Kentucky families need smart savings. Once Upon a Child in E-Town and on Outer Loop in Louisville buys and sells gently used kids' clothes, toys, and gear at unbeatable prices. It truly is a phenomenal place. We go there all the time. That's not in the script, but I just wanted you to know we go there all the time. It's a phenomenal place. And again, that's Once Upon a Child in E-Town and on Outer Loop in Louisville. For Plato's Closet, if you're looking to refresh your wardrobe without breaking the bank, Plato's Closet in E-Town buys and sells stylish, gently used clothing for teens and young adults for less. And by the way, the same local family owns all three of those previous stores that we mentioned. And again, that's for Plato's Closet in E-Town. That's all of our sponsors there. Again, I want to thank every one of them for supporting us. Again, they're the reason we could be here for you all 24/7. So I really hope you consider following their social medias or supporting them in any way that you guys can, because without them, we're not here 24/7 for you guys. So again, thank you to all of our sponsors for making that possible. Okay. See, I told you it would only be a few moments. Golly. Sometimes sparkling water tastes like tequila to me, or it gets me like tequila. Look at that. That's good stuff there. 87 cents a bottle at Walmart, by the way. Okay. On a scale of 1 to 5 filet of fish sandwiches, where are we? I think we're at about a 3.5-ish. The half I already ate. Stupid question. Would this be a blizzard warning or just a winter storm warning? So blizzard warning, the difference between the two is a blizzard warning typically has wind, like crazy winds involved with it. While we might have some 15 to 20 mile per hour wind gust, I don't think we're dealing with anything like a blizzard. But the blizzard, the difference between a blizzard warning and a winter storm warning, it really the only difference is the winds that are involved with it. I'm in E-Town. Will the storm be as bad as the last big ice storm we had a few years back? For E-Town, no, I don't think so. Lisa says, do you think it will do a big shift again? I think it's possible, but we've seen the models, whether they're wrong or right. The GFS model has really settled into its idea. The European model has really settled into its idea. So what happens now is the hurricane hunters go out and they get that information from the skies, and that information goes into the models. So kind of instead of the models guessing what's happening, well, now they have real data to go off of, and we'll start to see some of these short and medium range models begin to improve their ideas. So when that information gets ingested into the models, we could see another little shift, but I don't think it's going to be anything super drastic at this point. How would you compare this to the 2009 storm? Again, the 2009 ice storm has never been seen since then, at that level, anywhere in the country. So I don't feel comfortable comparing any storm to that. That is hopefully a one-off. Rebecca, the models refresh, late tonight. Hopefully we have some of the newer data in. If not, it will be in by tomorrow morning. Billy said, which model is your gut telling you to lean towards? Probably somewhere between the European model and the European AI model. The European model and that suite of models, that family of models, if you will, is more built for storms like this. The GFS model is just not really built for a storm like this. The GFS model is not really built for anything. I don't even know why it still exists. And watch it be correct. Watch it be correct. I will say this. The GFS model about a week and a half ago was the first model to even remotely signal anything that was happening. So I will give the GFS credit. It did catch a really early wave. George, when will you have your guess or thoughts on snowfall totals? I really hope to have that out by first thing tomorrow morning for you guys. If I go throughout tonight, I'm gonna go out. Tonight, tomorrow morning, I'm gonna go through all the data several times here. And if it's at least somewhat consistent, we'll start to get our ideas into order. Tomorrow morning would be Thursday morning, so we would have our first call then. We would probably have an improved call Friday morning, and then hopefully we don't have to make any more changes, and we can roll with that. But if we do have to have a final call, it would be Friday night before the system starts. Caleb, I need to take this off the screen, but this is kind of what the model's idea is. This is not a specific forecast. This is just the model's idea of snowfall. Again, Jose and all those other folks asking about specific amounts, guys, we have not even made a forecast yet. Again, I have to remind you, the data's not been consistent enough to allow for us to make a forecast yet. I hope to have that out by tomorrow morning. Are we looking at a lot of ice, or is it too soon to tell? We need to see how the trends go tonight. And of course, I will let you guys know if we're expecting a whole lot of ice. Right now, if we do see ice in Kentucky, it should be a half inch or less, which is still a healthy amount of ice, but it at least avoids those upper kind of crazy numbers. Yes, the snow ratio would be closer to 15 or 18 to 1. But that also kind of depends on how far north that warm nose comes. Again, I want to see a lot of questions about timing. The timing is a little bit inconsistent right now, but on all three of the models that we showed you guys just now, the storm starts Saturday morning between 4 to 10 a.m. Eastern time, and it lasts all the way through Sunday night. So again, that's kind of where we're at right now with timing, but it's not really set in stone. Do you think E-Town could see power outages? That just depends on if the ice comes up that far. I will say this, the areas where the ice is where those areas for power outages, obviously, the concern starts to rise. If you're seeing mostly snow out of this, unless, we get to like a crazy level of wind, I don't really see power outages being a concern because the snow is going to be incredibly fluffy and light. Do you think this will be in historical category? I think no matter how this plays out, unless we see a crazy shift and Kentucky just all of a sudden gets nothing from this, which I don't think is on the table at all, we're already kind of going toward historical category because you guys have to remember, snows like this just don't happen a whole lot around here. They happen once every, usually, okay, let me kind of rephrase. Every once in a while, you get an area of the state that gets a crazy amount of snowfall, like 12 to 16 inches of snow, a small area. It is incredibly rare to see a statewide snowfall of more than 8 inches. A matter of fact, I actually looked this up. The last time, let me make sure I say this correctly. The last time at least 70% of the state saw at least 8 inches of snowfall was February of 1998. That was the last time. So yeah, you're kind of getting into historical category at that point because the last time we've seen a snowstorm this wide in Kentucky producing this much snowfall, if this pans out, of course, that's a big if, you're talking about 28 years at that point. No, unfortunately, for a lot of you, this will not be the good snowman building type of snow. If you're down along the freezing rain of snow line, you might get a period of wet, heavy snowfall. But for most of you, this looks to be more of a dry, powdery, fluffy snowfall, which is decent because it actually allows you to go outside instead of shoveling. You can actually just sweep with a broom or blow with a blower, and that'll get most of your snow off. When do I think the data for the hurricane hunters will be out? I think they're in there right now or going in soon. I don't think it'll be in there for tonight's runs, but it should be in there for tomorrow morning's runs. Yes, happy anniversary to us. It is mine and Brianna's anniversary today. I feel bad because we've been working all day, but I will make it up to her. Can you describe the warm nose some more? Okay. So the warm nose, what I mean by that is you have different layers of the atmosphere. Think of the atmosphere, guys, as like a big layered cake. You have different layers in that cake. You have different layers of the atmosphere. And at each layer, you have different temperatures that may be occurring. So even if you're below, that's why sometimes, guys, when you walk outside and it's 38 degrees, you're like, how in the world is it snowing? Well, because it's still below freezing just above our heads, right? Where the tops of the trees are. That's a different layer of the atmosphere, or where the planes fly, or where those big skyscrapers go, right? The same thing can happen when it comes to the precipitation falling. Different layers of the atmosphere can have different movements of warm air or cold air. So while at the ground, we're going to have winds out of the north that are going to produce 10 to 15 degrees on the temperature or the thermometer scale. Some of the data is trying to show that about a mile above our heads, the winds actually are going to be changing direction and coming out of the south. And when that happens, it's going to bring in warmer air with it. All right. And some of that data is taking that mile up layer and making it just ever so slightly above freezing. Well, when it goes above freezing, that snowflake that started all the way up here and is now dropping is now turning into a raindrop. And then when it gets down to the ground, it's landing on a surface that's below freezing. So that's freezing rain. And that's what a warm nose does. Could this move south again? Yes, guys. I think we're not done with the shifts. I don't see any more dramatic shifts like we've seen. Like last night was a very dramatic shift up to the northwest. I don't think we're going to see anything crazy dramatic. I could be wrong, but we'll still see those subtle shifts of 50 to 75 miles. Again, guys, we're not answering specific counties yet. We haven't even made a forecast yet. So answering specific counties at this stage would just be irresponsible and also just be inaccurate. So again, just want to point out, we are not ready to answer county by county or city by city at this point. So just again, just pointing that out, it's not ready at this point. After seeing all the models and they've been shifting, if you had to take a gamble, what's your greatest thought on snow and ice? Again, kind of what this graphic here is. This I made this earlier today. Right now, I don't see it changing, in my opinion, at this point. Of course, that can change when the new data comes in, but this is kind of how I feel things will play out. Is it possible that we see a winter storm warning? Absolutely. I think everyone in the state will be under a winter storm warning. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mary. I was shocked to see snow this morning here in E-Town. I'm glad it wasn't too bad. It was definitely a little bit rough there for a couple of hours for that morning commute. Those roads were slippery. Thank you, Jose, for calling that out. Yeah, Amber, again, the time frames are going to be Saturday morning to Sunday night. Again, can't get any more specific than that because the event's actually going to be 24 to 36 hours long. So it's really going to be from Saturday morning to Sunday night. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. Walmart delivery is already full. I can only imagine. I have to go to Walmart tomorrow and get formula because we can't order it through delivery. And it was not. I'm not looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward to it. I'm going to try and go while everyone's at work or school, so I can at least minimize it somewhat. But I'm not looking forward to it at all. Jason said, when do you anticipate being able to make a forecast? I really believe that by tomorrow morning, we should be able to get a first call out. Tara, it should not be. You have a better idea for timing? Once again, the timing is Saturday morning to Sunday night. It really is that long of an event. Is this enough ice to cause major issues? If that warm nose comes up into Kentucky a little bit more, by the way, any little bit of ice can cause major issues, especially when you're talking about ice combined with snowfall. Any little bit of ice can cause some pretty crazy issues. Do you think they'll declare a state of emergency ahead of the storm? I have no idea. I have no idea about that. Usually how that stuff works is they'll see it happening for a couple of hours, then they're like, okay, let's go ahead and do it. What time is it starting Saturday? Again, it's Saturday morning. Guys, I love y'all. I cannot get any more specific than that. I really can't. You guys saw it for yourself when we went over the models. The timing is kind of everywhere. Really, as specific as we can get at this point is Saturday morning around sunrise, potentially, to around lunchtime, and then lasting to about Sunday night. I went to Kroger this afternoon. It was insane, and some of the shelves were getting bare. Yeah, it's crazy. You know what? You know what's really crazy about that is I know Walmart has like this whole meteorologist team, and you would think they would be able to see something like this coming and get more stock in. Once it starts, is it going to be continuous? Yes. This is probably going to be a 24 to 36 hour event. Okay, I'm going to start timing people out that are asking about timing, folks. I love y'all to death, but I cannot get more specific than Saturday morning to Sunday night. So nothing else is happening until Saturday that we know of? Yeah, that's correct. It should be pretty clear until we get to this event. Kentucky and Louisville have basketball home games. I did see that. That's going to be pretty rough. I don't know how they're going to go about that. Lauren, yeah, any precipitation that's on the ground can refreeze tonight. I think we're only going to get to about 30 to 31 degrees for a lot of you folks. Maybe a rare 29-degree marker tonight. So I don't expect widespread refreezing, but there may be some patchy slick spots tomorrow morning. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the broadcast here at this point because I think we have some new data starting to roll in. At this point, I feel pretty confident in what we've told you guys. Again, I can't get any more specific on timings or amounts right now. Hopefully, we can start to do that tomorrow morning. You guys know I'm going to take care of you. Just take a breath. Y'all got this. Ain't our first time during a winter storm here. We got y'all's back. All right. I appreciate all the new subscribers, followers, all that good stuff. You guys know how that stuff works. Thank you guys again. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. If you did miss any of the information in this broadcast, this broadcast was loaded with info. So once we get done posting it, you'll be able to go back and kind of scroll through and see for yourself what you kind of missed, okay? But I love you guys. I'm going to hop off here. Go say goodnight to the kiddos if they're even still awake. I doubt they're awake. And then get back to looking at some of this new data. And hopefully, by tomorrow morning, we can start getting some more specific forecast out. All right? I'm George Harbeck, Chief Forecaster, here with Weather Now Kentucky. Thank you so much. Until next time, stay safe, my friends.